Welcome to Grant's Rock Warehouse, and tonight I want to welcome Steve Sigl from the Happy Casualties to the channel. Tonight we're going to have an interview and discussion. Well, it's more like a discussion. Barely an interview. It's so loose. Good Lord. All right, enjoy, everybody. Welcome, Steve, to the show.
Grant is trying to change the world one track at a time. Grant's Rock Warehouse is keeping it real in the field.
Welcome to Grant's Rock Warehouse, and tonight I want to welcome Steven Sigl from the band The Happy Casualties here tonight. We are going to just talk, have a discussion, do a little interview. He is here, and you know, in the warehouse, it's all about turning you on to these bands that maybe not so many people know about. Happy Casualties. You got started, Venice, California, 2006, roughly? Steve?
Yeah, I met Ryan, who's my primary co-member in the band, in like about 2005, 2006. We started playing together, and that's really when the band kind of started. So yeah, 2006, Venice.
So what was it? So how did you two guys meet? Or were you like in a band? Was he like in a different band? How did the whole band come together? I'm just curious. And what were your influences while we're here?
You know, what happened was I was living with my bass player. I'm in Venice, and I was living at a place that was just about a half a mile away from where I am now. Mm-hmm. And I was living with my bass player, and we'd been playing music together since I want to say like 2002, 2003. We'd had a drummer, and then we lost him. He was actually a drummer who was also like a kind of doing A&R. And we had him, and then we kind of lost him. And then we were just sort of looking for a drummer. And then on a New Year's Eve party, 2005 into 2006, I think it was, we met. Well, Ryan happened to be at our apartment for the New Year's party, and we had a drum set up on a drum riser in the living room of our apartment, and he was like into it. And I just was like, yeah, you know, if you're interested in playing and stuff, because we're looking for somebody. And then he basically just was showing up. I was writing the songs. My main influences are like Big Star, Elvis Costello. There's a band out of Chicago that I keep forgetting to mention in interviews, but they are one of my favorite bands, and they're called the Chamber Strings.
The Chamber Strings. Now that's a band I'm not familiar with.
Dude, they have 2 albums.
Shut down. Go ahead. I'm ready to write. Go ahead.
Telegram Morning, or I think wait, I can't remember the first album. I can't remember the first album's name, but the second album's called Month of Sundays. So they basically have 2 albums proper. The guy's name was Kevin Jr. He started out as kind of like a Johnny Thunders clone. Mm-hmm. He even backed up Gigi Allen for a show in like 1989. But the Chamber Strings stuff, it's just the greatest. They're the greatest records that no one has ever heard of. And I can't, those 2 albums that they did, for the life of me, I can't remember the first one now.
Well, I'm going to look it up. You know, in the warehouse, ladies and gentlemen, we're so loose that if Steve's on we're going to find this real quick. We have time. We're good. Let me look it up. I've got to know now. You're building it up so much that I have to know. So what year was this? What era are we? Give me the name. What was it? Chamber?
Look up the Chamber Strings. Look up Month of Sundays. That was kind of their breakthrough album.
All right, let's look. There it is. I got it. Okay. So that came out in 2001. Looking at the cover. Oh, very cool. Bobsled Records.
Yeah.
Came out on CD in 2000. Well, it got a US CD. Came out on vinyl in 2001. Came out on CD in 2001. Looking at the cover, it looks very kind of new wave to me. The guy that's on the cover, I don't know. But how did you get turned on to these guys?
You remember how there was all those magazines that they used to have kind of like around like the turn of the century, so to
Yeah.
speak? You would have all these like Mean magazine, you have all these, and I remember like there was this magazine that had a review of that record, and it had a review of this record by this guy named Evan Johansson. I think he's Norwegian. He went on to do this band called Magnet, and but he released an album right around the same time Month of Sundays came out, and it was called Quiet and Still. And I happened to be at Amoeba Records out here not long after having that magazine, and I found both of those CDs used, the Evan Johansson and the Chamber Strings Month of Sundays. And I picked them up, and those records are still in rotation for me to this day. And it's not just for nostalgia reasons. I really think that those records stand up really good. But the Chamber Strings was like a big influence, especially on this last album we did, Welcome to the Dreamhouse. I kind of went into that album thinking of like a Chamber Strings sort of thing. And then the last band to list as an influence, so it's really important. Well, Neil Young is really important. The Stones are really important, and the Replacements are really important. So those are some of like the really big bands for me.
I love it. I love it. Well, I've already ordered Month of Sundays. This is the way it is. Everybody on here is going. Of course, Grant's going to go out and buy it. Of course, he's absolutely out of his mind. So, the Chamber Strings also put out an album called Gospel Morning from 1990.
That's the other one. That one's great too.
Oh, God,
love that.
All right. See, I trust you. See, I'm in. I'll end up doing a show on it too.
You absolutely should.
I'm looking right now. People are going, Grant, are you seriously? You're 100%, man. I'm going to get it right. Well, like, oh, this person's got. Oh, this person has them. Oh, man. Anyway, I'll have to edit that. But anyway, I'm all into it. So Big Star. What, you like the band Jellyfish? What's your thoughts on Jellyfish? You like Jellyfish?
You know,
Imperial
that was
Drag?
a band that I know you like them, but I kind of had a hard time getting into.
Well, you know, it might not be for everybody. And we are going to be talking about the new record as well. So anyway, let's get back on track. Are we ever on track on this show? No, not really. So anyway, you've been with Ryan all these years, but what makes your collaboration so strong? Why do you two stick together?
We've had our like ups and downs, but it's kind of like just like a marriage, because it's like if you don't have any success, and we haven't really had any success, but you kind of keep showing up and playing music together, it's kind of like, because like just doing that is like fulfilling. And so, yeah, he's not with me for the money, but like,
Well, you're an artist. You guys are in it for the art.
yeah, that's pretty much it. But it doesn't seem like a lot of people that would be doing music generally would want to, because, you know, like with this last album, right? Like you're supposed to just take certain songs and you're supposed to make a single and you're supposed to hype it and all this thing. And I was like, nah, just release the whole thing. It was recorded in a garage. Just there, it's an album. Some of the songs are like, I think, really good, and some are just like okay or whatever, but it's like it has this cohesive album kind of thing. And the whole mentality of like, this is our single, these are the reels for the single, this is like all the promo work for the single, and you hype it to death, and then you move on to the next single, and then you eventually release an EP or whatever. Like, that's not like how I am as like a music fan. I'm like, as a music fan, I'm like you, like I want to have like this sort of like full album experience. So that's why I kind of did that, and continue to do it. And I guess I've done it for a while now.
So when you guys are getting together and you're coming, of course you do a lot of the writing, most of the writing, correct?
Yeah.
Okay. when you're doing, I mean, you've had, after all these years, 2000 and going back, let's go back to 2004 with different projects. How has the band evolved? I know that you've had, of course, there's been people that have come and go. You know, you and Ryan are still here, of course. But how has the band, after all these years with this new album, and by the way, I'll have the new album, the image right here on the screen anyway. How has all those years and all those records that you've put, how do I want to phrase this? This is kind of hard. When they get the new record, I mean, what are they going to find on it compared to like what you've done in the past? I mean, are you building on everything that you've put together before to get to this record today? Or I don't know. I guess I really want to know more about the creative process and how it affected this new record. I mean, how long did it take you to record? How long did it take you to write? I mean, do you just go, Ryan, I've got the song, let's go do it? I don't know. How do you guys function, I guess?
Well, the thing is with like the first few albums, you kind of get the songs together and you're younger, and then you have like people that are like, that are handling the recording or kind of see themselves, you're paying them, but they kind of see themselves in this sort of producer kind of role. And then they kind of steer the album in certain directions, whatever album it is you're working on. And the first album, that Too Much Joy Turns Back the Fingernails, that album was like, we recorded like a lot of it in the really small room at King Size Studios here in Eagle Rock, It's about probably like 15, 20 miles away from me. And then Ethan, when he that was my bass player at the time, and he added all these overdubs and vocals, and Ethan really, I guess, wanted to do like this sort of chamber pop record that was kind of moody, and he kind of steered it in a certain direction. And then the next record was that Sons of the New West, and Ryan wasn't even on that. He had quit the band at that point, and I kind of recorded that with like a click, and with this guy Philip Hout out in Huntington Park, and then we overdubbed and worked on it for a period of time. And then that album kind of had sort of its own feel because it had all these songs that were all kind of like lovelorn songs. And that album, it was one of the first things where it was like I wasn't consciously trying to impart a feel to it, but where it was recorded and how it was recorded gave it this sort of organic feel that was very distinctive to it and marks it out. Like when I hear it, or if I play some of those songs, it really brings back, a period in time, like 15 years ago or whatever. But with that said, going into the last probably like 4 or 5 records, I'm like way more have an idea of like what the conceptual continuity, to borrow from Zappa, is going to be for the record. And I let other people like come in and however it's going to add, because on like Welcome to the Dreamhouse, Jack Lavoni, he's the kid or he's 25 or 26, but he's not a kid, but he's the guy we recorded in his garage. And basically, I was like, okay, you produce it however you're going to produce it. But these songs are all going to have this sort of conceptual vibe to them. And the vibe for Welcome to the Dreamhouse was really a vibe where I wanted to recapture this sort of memory I had of the 1970s and being here in the house with my dad, and my dad watching Happy Days. And there was this weird kind of like Americana sort of thing going on in the 70s. It was like the 1970s, the late 70s was trying to recapture this 1950s sort of wholesomeness and vibe. And I was trying to, on the Welcome to the Dreamhouse, I was trying to recapture that. And I did it, I think. like on Floods, Droughts, and Other Ravages Visit Upon the Earth, that was an album where it was sort of like I wanted to do this kind of like apocalyptic sort of Americana album with my friends, and we did that. So it's like I have like a certain scheme now, and I write the majority of the songs, and then so I have more control. In the beginning, it was like I had the raw material, and then I let other people kind of dictate more about it. As time has gone on, I've gotten more control over it. But I do allow a lot more input than someone like Zappa or Brian Wilson or other sorts of people who would be kind of control freaks. I let people bring stuff in and see where that takes it as well, too.
Kind of like, yeah, I understand that, but it's still, but you don't tap at this point in the career, you don't technically have you're more or less the producer, but you do have outside opinions and stuff. I get that. But I mean, after doing all these records, like 10 studio albums and EPs, you should know what you're doing by now, and to have that concept, I totally get it. So do you think that if someone's looking at the Happy Casualties, would you say that this new record would be, if we look at the Happy Casualties in the dictionary and they have one album, what would be the defining album at this point in your career? I mean, if we're turning people onto the band, where would you have them start?
That's bad though. That sucks because I'm terrible at picking out the things that are like
they're
catchy.
Your children.
I know, but I'm always really bad at like deciding what's catchy and what's not, And like there's like people that are like really good at like doing like that sort of promo. Like I remember an interview with Gary Newman like 10 years ago where he was like saying like, they were like, what's the definitive Gary Newman? I'm like, you kind of asked. And he said, it's the new one.
A lot of the artists, I figured you would say the new one. But because usually a lot of these bands and artists, you've read probably tons of interviews with people and they don't like to look back. All these artists like to move forward. Like if I'm going to go look at all the back catalog of all the shows that I've done, I'm not going to look at that. I'm always trying to move forward. So I would assume that, if I was going to turn somebody, I would say probably go with this latest record. But I'm just curious if there was some era or period that was maybe like, you thought, man, this really is good. You know what I mean? Have you ever had something like that? Because like Brian Wilson, I think New Pet Sounds was great. But I think Smile was even going to be better. Which I do think Smile's better if you ever heard the Smile box set, but he knew that he had something with Pet Sounds, Beatles knew that they had something with, well, I don't know if the Beatles ever really did. I think they knew with Pepper that they had something that was going to be way different than anything else, I mean, some of these records or some of these artists, I think they just know,
But don't you think so? As a digression, though, because this is allowed on your channel.
I don't give a shit. We're just talking.
But okay, so the Beach Boys, right? But what's weird is it's like a lot of those 70s albums are really amazing, but they were discounted because of like the Smile sort of fiasco. Like Surf's Up is a really
Sunflower Sunflower, I think, is even a better album than Surf's Up.
Holland is great. Carl and the Passions. They had a lot of really good records that kind of got sort of ignored because like the Smile thing was so huge. And I think Smile, even Smile as it was recreated when they, what was it? 2005 or whatever,
roughly around in there.
Yeah, that was good. But like, Brian Wilson, actually, he is kind of like a tragic figure because he is sort of the guy who, if you ask him that question, he's like going to say like, yeah, like Pet Sounds or Smile. That's where I really had it. And it also probably resonates with this sort of a memory of where he was still really, even though he'd had like panic and anxiety issues, he was still really sort of in control artistically. And that was kind of,
I don't know. Have you ever read I've read stuff where they said, Brian went back to bed. He wasn't involved in anything. If you listen to any of those sessions, like Wild Honey, you listen to Friends, you listen to 2020, all the session stuff. Yeah. Brian is running the show on those like he was before. He's just recording at home. He's not going to the studio. It's not a big overblown production. He's not doing the wall of sound. He's not doing the Phil Spector thing. But he is running the show just like he always was. I think it was like more of the 70s stuff that I think. Oh, you ever hear the album Marilyn and Diane, the Spring album from like 1970, 71? Did you ever hear the Spring album that he produced?
No.
It's his wife Marilyn and her sister Diane were Spring, and of course they were the Honeys in the 60s, but they put out one, I think they only put out, there might be two, I can't remember. The One Smile album, I think Rhino put out a CD version of it. God, the early 90s maybe or whatever, but it's very Pet Sounds like. That's one you might want to hear that because Brian was he was still doing it. It was just on a different level, but that's a good one. But I love all that stuff, all that Beach Boys stuff. God,
I'm going to write that down, Grant. You got me on that one.
Spring. And I know Rhino put out one. And that's the one that I had. I don't know if it's ever really come out again. But I think it was around Surf's Up, I think, when he was working on that with them. And it's phenomenal. But there's some great Dennis Wilson stuff.
Yeah.
God. The Dennis Wilson solo album, Pacific Ocean Blues, great.
And that second, when they finally released it on CD, and that album that was basically the recorded, but it never got released, that stuff's really great too.
Yeah, I had that as a bootleg.
Yeah.
I mean, I was back in the day, like in the 80s and 90s, man, I was trying to get everything I could possibly get. I was so addicted to it. Just love that stuff. But the Beach Boys tangent.
To answer the question, though, the album, and I don't know what album would be good to like turn people onto it, but the album that has like that has the kind of the best spot for me in my heart or whatever is Sons of the New West. Okay. Because there's a kind of a lo-fi aspect to it, and there's a lot of that. If you ever saw the studio it was recording, it was a really big, drafty place, and sometimes I was recording at night, and it was just really like you could hear the cars on the street outside. But it just, to me, it really hangs together as an album. And like a really important influence to me, especially around that time, was like Alex Chilton's Like Flies on Sherbert. Mm-hmm. And not so much that I tried to do a little bit of that kind of chaotic thing on that album a little bit, but not as much as he did. But Like Flies on Sherbert is in like my top 10 favorite records.
Oh, wow.
Because it's like, I love Alex Chilton's solo stuff, but it's just such a reckless sort of album that like, it's for, people that get it, they get it. And people that don't, they just kind of hate on it. But I think that I think that album, and it's technically the second Happy Casualties album, but that's the album where I was like, yeah, like we're just going to be kind of like reckless. And if there's mistakes, leave the mistakes and things like that. But I wouldn't really do that for other albums now. But at that time, I was like, yeah, if there's mistakes, leave the mistake, And Neil Young would be like that too, because Tonight's the Night, man. I love that dude.
Everybody kept wanting to do like another Harvest or something like, the record companies get involved. But Neil, you have to admit, Neil is a true artist, and he only does what he wants to do. And
Yeah.
you don't know. He just goes with the flow. You have to admire it. You might not like everything he did. You know, a lot of people rag on trans a lot, but I love trans.
Trans is good.
It's good.
Yeah.
I don't. He just does what he does, you know. I can't think of that many artists. Well, Alex Chilton for one, but you were talking about Alex Chilton Flies on Sherbet. I think the whole thing that was shocking about that, at least I found it shocking, is that you had all of those great. Well, you had box top stuff. You had, which they didn't have much control of. They were just people playing it at that point. I mean, you know, kind of manufactured. It wasn't, you know, they were like a teen band. And then he got to Big Star, totally changed the way he approached his vocals. You wouldn't even know it's the same guy. But it was, the songs are so phenomenal on those Big Star albums. It's like a totally different artist. And then he changes into like Flies on Sherbet, and it's like a totally, I think it alienated a lot of people that probably thought they might get a Big Star record, or what they were hoping. Because I think that whole Big Star era, at least for me, I think is a sweet spot. You want Alex Chilton to keep doing that. But it could also be, Steve, it could also be the Todd Rundgren thing. Something Anything. You know, Todd did Ballad, did Something Anything. Are you a Todd Rundgren fan?
Yeah.
Okay. So he could write I Saw the Light all day. He could crank out Something Anything all the time, and it wasn't challenging for him, you know? We sit and listen to those songs on that record and go, you know, for me, the heavens parted, the waters parted. But he could just keep cranking it out. So he kept pushing it, because think about Wizard True Star coming out after Something Anything.
Yeah.
If you're expecting Something Anything, it's kind of like the Flies on Sherbet thing. But where in the hell was I going with that? But I think these artists like Neil Young, Todd Rundgren, Alex Chilton, you know, you just have to go with what you feel. You get bored, I guess, doing the same old thing. Though, God, you know, most of his audience, Todd would love, a lot of the Todd fans would love it if there's Something Anything, you know.
But you know, also, you know what you got to think too with Alex Chilton, man. Wasn't he like 24 when he did Third? He was young.
Because he was a kid in the box tops.
Yeah, so he was still really. So it's really amazing, the Big Star stuff that he and Chris Bell, and then you know, it's like it's the first album, it's him and Chris Bell, and then the second album it's him and Andy Hummel, and then the third album it's him and Jody Stevens. You know, and you get the feel of collaboration on those three albums, and he was just like, you dig them, and he's firing on all cylinders for those three albums, man. And then what I like about like Flies on Sherbet and Feudalist Tarts is you don't just get like the album, you also get that sense of the scene that he was in and he was creating. Because he was with Tav Falco. I like Tav Falco. I actually got to see Tav Falco a while back. He was with Tav Falco and Panther Burns. And you know who was backing Tav Falco when I saw him was Ken Stringfellow.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Nice.
So he was with them. He was playing. He was recording the Cramps. He was totally immersed in this whole scene. And there's this continuity. If you listen to Songs the Lord Taught Us, and you listen to that early Tav Falco stuff, and you listen to like Flies on Sherbet, and you also listen to Bangkok and some of that stuff he was doing in New York, and it's just like, it paints it captures this whole sort of era, you know, and it's a kind of era. Because, you know, we could say stuff like, oh, television, Dead Boys, whatever, and you have the CBGBs kind of thing in your mind, and that's kind of hammered out. The Tav Falco, Alex Chilton, like Flies on Sherbet, that kind of thing, that's a little bit more obscure and hidden, yet it is kind of a really distinct sort of rockabilly, punk rock, crazy sort of vibe that was really like nailed down by them in different ways at that point. And with psychedelia, and I know you're really into psychedelia, you look at that and it's
I
like
love
certain albums from 67, all
Mhm.
these sort of different bands all nailed down these different important facets that go on to make what we consider psychedelia now in
Mhm.
2025.
Yeah, 100%. Oh, yeah, I love all that stuff. Let me ask you this, since we're talking Big Star a lot, when did you get turned on to Big Star? How did you get turned on to it?
There was a guy, he was I met him. I was working at Blockbuster Video out here, and his name was Michael St. Pierre, and he was the road manager for Mazzy Star. And he
Okay.
worked at the Blockbuster with me after he wasn't their road manager anymore. And I would go over to his house, and he, like you were saying, he had all the Beach Boys bootlegs
Yeah.
on CD. And he had all these things, and he would turn me on to different stuff.
Mhm.
And I remember he had a copy of Big Star's Third, but it didn't really catch with me. And then when I was working at the record store later, I don't remember if I picked up the CD or if I put it on at the store, but I was like, whoa, this is really awesome. And so he technically turned me on to it, though. It was, he had like a really old copy of like Jackie Lomax's Sour Milk Sea on CD. I don't know if it was a bootleg.
Well, that came out, wasn't that on Apple? You remember like in the early
It was
90s?
on Apple.
Okay.
Yeah.
Remember when Apple did that reissue program? So like Mary Hopkin and a lot of those bands, well, the Ivies came out, a lot of that stuff that when they were opening up those Apple archives, and I've got some of those reissues. I'd like to get the Jackie Lomax one though. I don't have that one, but I've heard some tracks from Jackie, and whatever I've heard, I've liked. See, it's just one of those things. You can't hear everything, and going through life, it's all about getting turned on to stuff. And Jackie Lomax is one of those things I just need to carry through on. But that's probably what he had, because they released all those Apple ones back in the day. And they put out like some kind of compilation too. I can't remember what it was called, but they picked different tracks off them as a promo. But I don't know. I need to pick up more of that Apple stuff, but I don't have all of it.
You know that guy, John Howard?
Mm,
He did a song called Goodbye Susie.
I don't think I do. No.
Dude, you should.
Maybe if I heard it.
You should check him out. He was almost signed to Apple Records.
Okay.
But he didn't get signed, and he did an album that got reissued on what was it? It's not like Light in the Attic Records, but it's kind of like that. It might be Ace or something. No, I don't think it's Ace either. But John Howard, he got to do an album. It was called Kid in a Big World. And it's so Beatlesque. He did that record. It came out. Goodbye Susie was kind of a hit, but then the BBC, I guess, kind of banned it because it's about a girl like walking out into the ocean to commit suicide.
Mm-hmm.
And so then after the BBC sort of banned the song, then it dropped. The album kind of dropped. He recorded demos for a next album, and it didn't get released. And that's okay. That got released on CD way later in the 2000s. And then they released what would be his third album, which is called like Can You Hear Me Okay? And he was kind of going in a little bit more of that mid 70s almost disco vibe. And then the bonus tracks on that are just kind of him doing full disco, but I love disco, so it's really great. But I would add John Howard to the chamber strings as far as somebody you should check out. Kid in a Big World, man. I think that's a really amazing album.
I'm looking at
I think that you'll love it.
John Howard. Damn it, we're looking it up right now. Well, there's a lot of John Howards. So what's the name of the record again?
Kid in a Big World.
Kid in a Big World.
I think that's what it's called. I think so.
Well, we'll find it, because I have to do it right now. Oh, okay, I found it. Okay.
What record label is it on?
Okay, so Kid in a Big World, John Howard came out. Appears that it came out in 1975. It came out in the UK on CBS. RPM in the UK put it out, re-released it on CD, and then in 2023, Cool Cat Music in the US put out it says it's a 2 CD CDR reissue of it. Okay, so what it has, I guess it's a CDR. But anyway, it's got Kid in the Big World, the album, and then disc 2 has Kid in the Big World, the original demos.
Oh, okay.
So I don't know if we need the original demos, but
just get the album.
Yeah. I don't know if I need to go to that extent. It also came out in Japan on a Blue Spec CD, but RPM's the one that put it out in 2023. God, well, let's see how much they are, first of all. Oh, they're not too much. There's hardly any of them around, though. All right, I'll add it to the cart. All right, that's how I'm going to do it. Darn it, I love it. This is why I have you on here, Steve, is to talk music and make me spend money.
I didn't mean to do that, but
that's why I have you. No, actually, we're trying to just talk about your band, but it doesn't matter. We're just talking shit. Anyway, let me tell you a story, though, real quick. How I came into Hear Big Star. I used to work at a guitar store in the 80s. I was on the phone with the GHS string rep, and I was ordering a set of GHS 12s. I had a 66 Rickenbacker 12 string, okay? So I ordered some strings. I wasn't using pyramids on it. GHS evidently at the time I can't remember, but they had what I was wanting. Okay. He said, well, I said, you need it for Rickenbacker 12 string. I said, yeah. He said, oh, okay, great. Hey, if you're big into the Rickenbacker 12 string, there's a band that I think you might be into. And I said, okay, who is it? Well, the band is REM. And this was around the time that Reckoning came out. So it was like 84 probably.
Uh-huh.
Said, man, you like Rickenbacker 12 string, you're going to have to check that out. And I said, well, of course, I already knew about the Birds and all that. I knew all that, but I didn't hear about REM yet. So I went and checked it out. And of course, I was blown away. And the guy at the time also said, and yeah, if you like REM, if you like REM, you ought to check out Big Star. Now, this is in the early 80s when, people really didn't know Big Star that much. Because I think REM was the one that really kind of brought Big Star back out and gave them notoriety. And the Bangles, Hunter, yes. And they would talk about it and kind of got that movement going. But this GHS string rep, Steve, mentioned them and said, you got to go check them out. And I went, all right, cool. It's just weird the shit that you remember after all these years. But I'm going, well, I love REM. I love the Big Star. Boy, that's GHS string rep guy was all right on track. That's how you get turned on to stuff, just by hearing people talk about it. So that's the whole goal of my channel anyway.
Well, I want to tell you about how I got turned on to Zappa then. It's similar. So I was working at a toy store and I was just turning like 18, and this older guy was there, and he used to play music, but he'd become like a born again Christian. Mm-hmm. And I would talk to him about music and stuff, because I think I was like, it was this phase where I was like really anything the Stones did. I was just, and the Stones are still my favorite band of all time, Grant. But like
over the Beatles?
Yes.
Careful, Steve.
I'm just saying that I'm
just giving you crap.
Celebrate their entire catalog. But anyway, so this guy, he was telling me certain things to check out because he's older, and he mentioned Frank Zappa, and I was like, I've heard that guy's name, but I didn't know him. And the thing was, is at Santa Monica Community College, where I was going at the time, there was a record store that was just like 3 blocks east. And this is when records were not popular, like 95. So you could just hang out at the record store and get any record, put it on the turntable and listen to it with headphones. And this guy at work told me about Frank Zappa, and he was coming at it from a guitarist sort of angle. And I looked, they had all the Zappa records. You think about how much those would be worth now, right?
Well, think about it. The time that you're talking about, it's not like you could just go out and there would be you didn't really find that stuff. You never saw
Well,
Zappa really in the bins. I remember in Columbus, Ohio, you would come across it, but not that much. Not until he started releasing the CDs and stuff. It really got stuff out there. But most of this catalog, I mean, they only pressed so many of those records. You know what I mean? It wasn't like there was tons of them.
There was this record store, they had a copy of 200 Motels on vinyl.
Yeah, BM Bolt's got one of those.
Yeah, and so I looked through them and I saw Apostrophe,
Mm-hmm.
and I went, and this is my first thing, and I went and I put it on side one. I started listening to it, and I was like, and it was like goofy, and like when I was a kid, my dad used to tell me like goofy stories, and I was kind of like, it reminded me of something like sort of like off the wall, sort of surreal kind of story my dad would tell, but in music form or whatever. I was like, I've never heard anything like this. This is so crazy. So it was like, Don't Eat the Yellow Snow. And it was such an immersive sort of like world. And it was literally one of those few times. I mean, there's times, obviously, when you're getting turned on to new music where you're like, whoa, this is great. Got to check this out, follow up on it. But there's very few times, I think, like listening to Exile on Main Street for the first time,
Mm-hmm.
or this experience at the record store where you put this on and you like your whole idea of what music can be and what people did musically in the past is a total revelation to you. And that's what it was. And ever since then, I became just like a diehard Zappa fan. I'm very, as you know, I'm critical about kind of the shake your booty, Joe's Garage, like the kind of like the more vulgar sort of thing. But You Are What You Is, like I told you, You Are What You is where he came back and he's like, look, I can do a masterpiece album.
It's again. A masterpiece.
It's a masterpiece, man. You Are What You Is a
and like we talked about on that show, Steve, I thought, well, my God, I can put that album up there with We're Only In It for the Money absolutely free, because I still think all the original Mother stuff, Freak Out, well, I think We're Only In It for the Money is the record. And that later, what was that? That was in 81, right? My God, he just almost, that could have came right after. If you would have slapped 1967 production on it, it could have been the next album right after We're Only In It for the Money, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah. But for me, my period, I do like the early stuff, but I really love 68 to 75. And like, I agree with like, I think BM Bolt was like saying that like One Size Fits All is like really the top. And I know that's like kind of like the Zappa aficionado album, but dude, One Size Fits All is it's such a masterpiece, dude. I love it. And the production, I think with some of the early stuff, the production doesn't totally line up with what Frank was trying to do at that time. That's why he kind of messed with those albums later and kind of ruined them when he,
when we re-record the bass and the drum parts to, he was saying, what was he saying? Oh, well, the tapes are in bad shape. Well, whatever. Those 2012 remasters on CD, the tape, it sounds fine. Maybe there's a couple of dropouts, but we could fix it. Maybe he felt that they couldn't fix it then. And I don't know how those original Mothers albums were stored. How did MGM store those? And I don't know how those changed hands, and God only knows. But thank God that the 2012 CDs came out, because you can hear the original mixes. Cruising with Ruben and the Jets, to have that with the original track, the original recording of it to come out.
I think that though, that like the Roxy and Elsewhere and One Size Fits All and Apostrophe, I'm not crazy about Overnight Sensation. I think Camarillo Brillo is great, but like I think those albums, you really had the production quality meeting him at what he was doing musically and songwriting wise. And Zoot Allures is really kind of where that era it sort of peaks. It's not as great as One Size Fits All, but the what was going on production wise really matches up with what he was doing musically. And it's like Exile on Main Street, I mean, they were downsizing for what they were doing production wise, but man, it captured the Stones like the fucking Stones, man.
Mm-hmm.
And there'd be like the Beatles, it's like Abbey Road would be like that. To me, it's like Abbey Road really captures the Beatles as to what the Beatles could achieve. And in some ways, that album is kind of like a sort of like a cast off, right? Like, weren't they just kind of doing it because they had to do it? And yet it sort of captures
the whole thing is if they're going to break up, they want to go out. It was like, let's do the best record we could do. I don't think Abbey Road's the best record, but they wanted to go out on top. Probably, well, my favorite's Revolver, like a lot of people, or Rubber Soul, probably. But I love Pepper. I love Magical Mystery Tour. To be quite honest, my favorite might be what Capitol did. People bitched about Capitol, but man, they would put together some good records. What they did with Magical Mystery Tour and take the EP on side one and then put the singles on side two, it totally works as a record. It's perfect. Yeah. But I love that, there's no Beatle albums I dislike. I love them all. It's like they're my children. But I think probably the peak creatively, you have to admit, Pepper was probably the peak creative period, that Magical Mystery Tour. And then once they did it, they calmed back down. But there's something about Revolver.
The White Album is the peak creative period because they all had their share in like the Beatles, and they all put out. I mean, the problem with the White Album is there is stuff on there that you would skip. Like I would skip Obla Di Obla Da, and I would skip Revolution number 9, not out of principle, but just because, But like you think of you get that box set. Mm-hmm. All the stuff that they were doing, man. I think, was it the Escher sessions? Is that what they're called?
Well, that's all the demos. They would go over to, I guess they recorded a lot of those demos at George's house. That's why they call it that. So,
yeah.
After they came back from the Maharishi and they went over to India, they had all these songs that they'd written. And they just did all those demos at George's house. But yeah, they were in a good spot then, But as far as guitar tones go, I think Revolver has some of the best guitar sounds on the planet. Just to jump to guitar, I love the way the guitars sound on that record. And those are like those Voxes that I think they're like transistor preamps, but I think they're the power. I think they had tubes for the power section, but those are transistor amps pretty much. But man, they sound, God, I love it.
Is Andrew Bird Can Sing on that, or is it on? Yeah, that's great. That guitar tone is great. And Taxman, I think everybody, when you talk about the guitar tone on like Revolver, you think about Taxman, how that sounds.
Mm-hmm. Paul's doing the solo on that.
Oh,
Paul
really?
Paul as a lead guitar player, I love it because Paul, when he plays, it just sounds like he could just like take off the planet because he's just such a wild player, Yeah, he plays a solo on Taxman.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Mm-hmm. I think George is playing bass. It might be Paul playing the guitar part. I know. Well, George. Well, it's probably John. I can't remember, but I know Paul's playing the solo on it. Probably playing that Casino or that Telecaster.
Do you think John had the Casino back then? I thought John had the Casino in like 68.
No, they got those they started using those on Revolver.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, wow.
They got him in early 66, I think. Pretty sure.
Oh, okay. I always know
Paul's the one who had one.
John with the Casino.
Paul's the one that had it. Paul's the one that got the Casino first. And then George and John got one. But it was Paul turned him on to it. I don't know where Paul got his, but he got it somewhere. His is an older one. It's got like a smaller headstock than the other ones. I think his is a 63 or 64 Casino, maybe. I don't know.
Interesting.
Yeah, we could just go down a damn rabbit hole. We've already went on a tangent. We're just talking music here, kids. Hopefully you'll get something out of it. Now I don't even know what to talk about. Um, um, I do want to mention when I did that one band, one artist show where I featured some music by you guys. I got a lot of great comments about you guys. You seem like your fan base out in California it seems like you have some hardcore fans after all these years.
Yeah.
I mean, how does that feel? There are people on the making comment. These are my favorite. This is my favorite band. All these records are good. Blah. They're just seem like they're very hardcore, passionate people. I mean, do you have like a fan base that follow you around from gigs or what?
No, you get it's kind of people that you sort of that you've met and you maybe played shows with, or
Mm-hmm.
I remember one of the people who wrote he wrote something about my favorite band from LA or whatever, and that guy's name is Patrick.
Mm-hmm.
And he actually did the album cover for, we did that Gigi Allen tribute EP, The Sleaziest, Happiest Casualties. He's the one that did the album cover for that.
Oh, cool.
But Patrick, he's you would have full on crazy record store conversations with him. He's all into this sort of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember I can't remember how it was, but he was he used to work at a video store out here called Vidiots, and he was he knew the Happy Casualties, and he was yeah, I really love your guys' stuff. And I like when people that are really well versed in music and like to geek out on the music history of things, if they appreciate what I'm doing musically,
Yeah.
because that's where I'm coming from. I guess what the kids say, the lore. You're contributing to the rock and roll lore, and so when you have other people that are really that hear what you're doing and they see that you're contributing to the lore,
Mm-hmm.
then you're oh, this is really cool. Because we did that kind of that rap mixtape, that a Bachelor Days EP, and there's that song on there called This Is Incel Core, and I did have to pay to promote that, but that song was something that caught on with younger people, and so younger people heard that and they liked it. And then some of them, I would be working with, and they'd hear my other stuff, the majority of which is rock, and they'd be I didn't know you made music like this. They thought I just did rap,
Right.
So when you have people that are more into the encyclopedic music experience, who are hey, what you're doing is really good,
It's awesome.
or that tell my buddy Greg, who's in the Balkans right now, he wrote to me and he was he's a pretty reserved guy, and he was welcome to the Dreamhouse. He's this is a great album, dude. And just to have somebody that you respect and knows a lot about music to tell you that you did a great job, I mean, that's one of the best feelings, and you can't put a price tag on that. It's just having people who kind of know music and are into music that say, yeah, man, this is really good. This really speaks to me. That's 80% of it for me.
Wow. Well, I'm just curious, since you've been part of this indie scene since the band, you've probably seen the scene change and evolve since 2006. How is the indie scene in LA right now? Is there a lot of places to play? Is there a lot of activity? I really have no idea. I'm just curious.
It's my buddy Nick. He's in a band called Petrov the Hero. He does a lot of work trying to book shows, and what he's doing musically is really still very kind of oriented to like what I'm sort of talking about. But I think the majority of what's going on musically here is what's going on in like indie music throughout the US, whereas it's kind of over like the last 20 years or so, it's evolved more into a fashion sort of thing.
Gotcha.
And the fashion, it used to be that before the music and the fashion were kind of neck, and then slowly the fashion pulled way ahead, you know? And that's what I'd say is like kind of dominating sort of like, you know what's funny? I don't know. This is a really funny thing. It's like younger people that I like work with or I meet or whatever, and I talk to about music, they're like, oh, I would consider you guys more alternative. And I'm like, alternative? We stopped calling ourselves alternative in like the 90s because it wasn't cool anymore. But for them, it's cool.
It's retro.
I guess so, yeah. They call it like divorce dad rock.
I still call it alternative. I've never not called it alternative. But what is alternative? You could have called the stuff in the late 60s. The Leaves, the band The Leaves, that could have been called alternative. The garage bands back in that's alternative. There's always been something alternative. You could call Zappa alternative. It's really kind of a weird, it's more of an indie rock, I guess. I don't know. It's a weird way to place something, but I still use it. When I think of the 90s, I think Lemonheads, Juliana Hatfield, Liz Phair. I consider all that stuff alternative.
That's what I think of when I think of alternative, is stuff like that. Because basically it was all those genres that got to bubble up in the post-Nirvana age that that had sort of been neglected by like the mainstream. And then slowly you had sort of, I guess, a kind of a cross-pollination where like the person that comes to mind is like Duncan Sheik. Like that Barely Breathing. That's where it's like alternative meets AOR, right?
It's kind of, I've talked to people on my show. I don't know. What do you think of that record? A lot of people, I have had people that have been on the show that have talked very highly of Duncan Sheik, and he's put out quite a few records that I haven't heard. The one that really sold was that debut album.
Yeah.
But a lot of people, well, I don't know a lot of people, but it keeps popping up on the channel where we've been talking music, and Duncan Sheik will pop up in that record. I mean, you like that record?
I like that. I have that record, but I only really know the song. Like, I think I tried giving it.
But people said it's just like it's just a phenomenal album.
Interesting. I'll have to give it a spin.
I picked one up for $1 because no one cares about 90s stuff, CD wise. That's when they weren't selling records so much, and CDs, you can get, Alanis Morissette, they pressed a bazillion of those, you can get it cheap. But anyway, ladies and gentlemen, we're with Steve from Happy Casualties, and I do need to mention that there is a new Happy Casualties album, Welcome to the Dreamhouse, released, October of this year?
It's like September 9th. Yeah,
September, October.
Yeah,
It is out. Go check it out. We're trying to give Steve some love and give the band some love, and we haven't talked much about it, but we're just on a tangent. I do have to ask this. What?
Before you do on the 90s alternative thing, I want to know, what do you think of American Music Club?
I've got a couple. Oh, okay, I'm embarrassed. I've got a couple American Music Club albums that I bought in the cheapie bin for like $1, and I've put it into the archives, but I have yet to, I think maybe within the past 2 years, because I remember them back in the day. They used to get played on, alternative radio stations back in the day, but I don't know if I really paid attention to them too much. So I think what I have is, I can't remember. I think I've got the first album, which I think was an independent release. And then I've got something that came out in reprise. Now, I can't remember the title of it, but I've got a couple, but I have yet to go down that road.
Is it San Francisco? Is that the one you have?
I know that was the big record.
Yeah.
It's not that one. I think it's the album after that.
Yeah, no, American Music Club is a really big band for me. We actually got to open for them at Spaceland out here. And the reason we got to open was because we were the only band on MySpace that had them listed as an influence. But like, I think they're a really great band. I think Mark Eitzel's a really amazing songwriter, and San Francisco is a really great album to start with, and I think some of Mark Eitzel's solo stuff is really amazing too. But yeah, I think there's aspects of them that are there's a certain like power pop aspects, there's certain like Nick Drake aspects. But they're also like one of those 90s alternative bands that people sort of, I think, kind of gloss over. And I have to consciously remind myself. Love Songs for Patriots, which is, I think, the album that came after San Francisco. That's a good album. That's a really good album.
All right. This isn't the album before it. Okay. The albums that I have I have Engine that came out on Frontier, and I've got Mercury. So Mercury was in 93 and San Francisco was in 94. So it's the album before San Francisco. That's the two
San Francisco is better than Mercury, okay. I think. Mercury's good, but San Francisco, I think, like, if you listen to it, I'm not telling you don't buy it. You've already bought too much stuff.
No, you're good. It's fine.
But but just listen to it and then tell me, like, San Francisco, tell me, like, if you dig it, but then also tell me, like, if it transports you back to that kind of 90s alternative headspace. Because, like, to me, that album really does it. It's good all the way through.
Well,
it's great.
The American Music Club, as far as on the used market, all their stuff's cheap.
Yeah.
Because I don't think that, they weren't a big band. Like here, American Music Club, San Francisco, Discogs, $1.50, $1.75, $3. I've noticed a lot of people though on Discogs now. When I look, you're if you want to buy something for $1.50 and then they charge you $5 to ship it, your order subtotal is $1.04 below the seller's minimum order requirement. What the hell? Do you want to sell the damn thing or not? Anyway, but yeah, I'll go down that road and I will check back. But yeah, I do have a couple, but man, anymore it's so hard for me to dive into stuff. Anyway, real quick before we wrap it up, I know we've been on a tangent, and I do have a question for you later. This far into the career, this far into the band, how do you measure success? What about the band? Is it the artisticness? I mean, is it playing out live? Is it, your songs out on Spotify? I don't know. What is it about this? What is it? How do you measure success at this point with the band? I mean, is it just, you just got to keep going because you have to do it? What really, does it for you?
You do have to keep going because you have to do it. But the success is really sort of, you have I write songs generally from the song title down. So I'll have like a song title that comes to me, and then I'll try to write the song that sort of the song title like dictates to me. So like the success is really instantiating the concept. Like if you have like the album, you have like ideas of the songs. I've used a lot of old songs, like on Welcome to the Dreamhouse, that song Faking Your Own Death, that's the only really old song that I had on there, but that song's at least like 20 years old. All the other songs are really new.
So why was it why did you bring an old song back like that? I mean, do you have just stuff like a archive of a book? You know, you've heard some of these artists, they just write all the time and they might just pull something out from the past or something. Maybe it wasn't finished. Was that like a track that wasn't finished that you went, wow, I've got this track and I thought maybe I can just finish it up and it would fit well on this record?
Well, I was doing like a live stream on Instagram, and one of my friends was like, "Hey, what's that song you did? Like God's just phoning it in." I was like, "Oh, it's called Faking Your Own Death." He's like, "That's really good. You should record that."
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, "Oh." So I made a point. And then the thing is with that Welcome to the Dreamhouse album, the song that's right before it is a cover. It's Roy Wood's Forever.
Which is phenomenal. God, we could go down a Roy Wood hole now.
Oh,
Forever,
yeah.
because very Beach Boys influence, obviously, and you know that whole record, a lot of Beach Boys harmonies. Love Roy, love the Move. I'm assuming you love the Move as well.
Dude, I am a big Move
Roy Wood
Wizard fan.
Yeah, Wizard, all that stuff.
And the thing was, is that song Forever, it just like the song at the end of the album, which was Everybody Loves Me by Don McLean. Those songs, they didn't get a lot of, they're not big songs, but those songs to me really kind of capture that vibe I was telling you, that 70s, but looking back at the 50s kind of vibe. And with Forever, it was like, I did it and I was like, I love, like, the album that we recorded that I'm going to try to get, because it's going to be our 20-year anniversary in 2006. Ryan's in Buffalo, but he's going to come back and we're going to try to play some shows. And I'm going to try to release this album that we got recorded. I'm trying to finish it because I work, you know, just retail jobs to make money to finish the albums. I'm going to try to do that. But the album that I have the songs written for that hopefully I'll get to record after that, it's like that You Are What You Is thing. It's like I got like 6 songs all going together. Okay. You know, like it's like that sort of vibe where it's like, and with the Forever going into Faking Your Own Death, I was like, oh, I like having this really like frenetic teenage buildup. And our version of Forever is like different than Roy Wood's. We're not trying to do the Beach Boys thing that he was doing.
Right.
But ours is more like the frenetic sort of like 70s, like teenage, like, you know, freak out sort of rock and roll version. But I like having that sort of big rock and roll explosion with the horns and then having it sort of like crash, and then you have this really nice acoustic little song, Faking Your Own Death, kind of pop up. It just like really fit for me. And so for me, like the success is where you have the songs, you make sure every song that you're doing is the best song you can do, and you practice it a lot and you write it a lot and you make sure the lyrics are all up to par for you. And then you record and you create the album that does justice to your idea. That's really the only success that you can have. And that success is there for anybody to have, as long as they stick to it. Money or touring or attention or fame or all that stuff you can never count on, but you having your idea, putting in the work, and then making money however you have to make money in order to record and create it, that you can control, and you can do the thing that has to be done. You do justice to your own vision, and that's what I think is artistic success.
I think we can leave it right there. I think that sums it up. The latest record, Happy Casualties. Welcome to the Dreamhouse. Get yours today, kids. I'll put the link down. How do people get how do we find you? If we like physical media, CDs, records, or whatever, how do we find Happy Casualties?
Physical media, you probably have to just hit me up on Instagram, but I like Welcome to the Dreamhouse is just digital.
Okay, it's just digital. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, you know, some people might want to know, but so is that like through Bandcamp, or how do they find you guys?
It's on Spotify, it's on iTunes. Okay. Yeah.
All right. Well, that's how people are going to want to know. Inquiring minds, Steve, really want to know. Well, anyway, I think we can wrap this. We went on a tangent. but that's the way we
what I
are.
wanted to do, though, Grant. I didn't want to just talk about the band the whole time.
Well, I know we talk music. Hopefully, you've turned you on to some stuff to check out. But anyway, Steve, it's been a pleasure. More, it just sounds like from our discussion, there's more. The Happy Casualties aren't going anywhere, and there will be some more material coming down the pike. I want to thank you for coming on. Been a fun discussion. Hopefully, everybody will enjoy it because everybody expects that in the Warehouse. There's no rules. We're running wide open. Anyway, Steve, thank you. Appreciate it. Check out the new record. Like I said, Spotify. He told you where to go. Welcome to the Dreamhouse. Check it out. All right. See everybody.